Tonight on Banana Slug News. UC administration and students convene for the latest talk on the university budget.
The Israel-Palestine debate touches down at UCSC.
Hundreds of women walk to reclaim their femininity.
As Memorial Day approaches, the Ascent takes a look at slug beds.
We find out what Bin Laden's death means to UCSC students.
And finally, a look at slug sports. All this coming up right now in Banana Slug News.
Good evening and welcome to Banana Slug News. I'm Paul Vasquez.
And I'm Monica Cordova.
Our top story tonight, the California budget crisis comes to a head in a talk with faculty and administration. In a sudden spur of meetings between administrators, students, and even the state senate, the plea to stop cutting funds has taken on a grimmer look than ever before. Ryan Anderson reports on a possible solution to this daunting problem.
Bigger classes, fewer resources, millions of dollars in cuts. We're all familiar with the financial crisis that faces the school and the state of California. We've seen the protests and we've heard the arguments. But how bad is it really? How deep do these cuts go? The latest plea from the UC Chancellor shows us the grim reality. On May 6th, the president of the University of California, Mark Yudof, testified before the California State Budget Committee in Mountain View, explaining the state of education.
I think the relationship between the University of California and the state of California is long and symbiotic. For a long time, we had a good romance, but as Lady Gaga says, recently we've had a bad romance. And this downward slide is scary. The total faculty level is in decline at Irvine. We've eliminated degree programs at Berkeley. We've reduced the library hours at Riverside. We've lost graduate academic students at UCSF. We've lost research revenue at San Diego. We even lost the phone lines at Santa Barbara. We've cut course offerings at Santa Cruz, and the faculty is voluntarily teaching extra courses. And we instituted a voluntary separation program at Davis. At UCLA, we've consolidated departments, and at Merced, which has been tough, we have delayed recruitment for as long as possible for key faculty and administrators on a campus which is financially very close to the line.
While Yudof defends the UC's right to be funded publicly, many students feel the school is actually moving towards privatization.
So I definitely think that it's ridiculous how much we've had to spend and how our school really is becoming privatized. And it's like more of our money is going towards the regions than anything else. And it's kind of, it bothers me how low a priority education is in this state.
Definitely. I mean, I think it's, Santa Cruz was founded, by Clark Kerr to be this alternative UC campus to not end up like a machine like Berkeley. And that's exactly the direction that it's going in.
There's a lot of demonization of regents or the legislature or the governor. But when you really look into this stuff, the folks in charge are not the UC regents, they're not the governor, not the legislature. It's voters. And voters are largely reluctant to raise their taxes to reduce the number of cuts to schools.
And I don't see UDOP or the regents as the enemy. Sometimes I like to see the governor as the enemy, but he's not either. The state, the voters of the state, the people we elected, walked ourselves into this situation. And taxpayers here, like taxpayers in other states, have increasingly said, for the high-achieving students that are at the research universities, we are declining to pay for your education. We think you should pay for it.
Around Santa Cruz, however, voters support raising taxes to help fund education, especially from the wealthy.
There's a really small fraction of billionaires in California that if they just gave a fraction of their taxes to education, then the entire system would be paid for. And it's really like $100,000 of multi-billionaires isn't that much, and it's just stupid how it's not going towards education.
I mean, I know people are opposed to raising taxes here in California, but if that's the only way we can save like certain programs from budget cuts, I mean, I would be for it, because budget cuts are threatening cultural arts here on campus at UC Santa Cruz.
Well, I guess in terms of like talking about the budget crisis and whether or not I would raise taxes, I would say yes, but not to everyone. Like the protest in Sacramento was like the people from Santa Cruz were allying with the California Teachers Association, and we were basically saying that we should tax the 1% of the richest part of our population by 4% more, and that would like completely solve the budget crisis.
I just don't know. I don't know how we're gonna get out of this cripple if we go to that second round. And we can be cavalier about saying, oh well, you know, for every $100 million we'll raise the tuition X amount of money, but the impact on students is going to be devastating.
While balancing the budget seems like an impossible task, increasing taxes may help solve the problem. This has been Ryan Anderson for Banana Slug News.
Thank you, Ryan, for that sobering look at the current situation.
Now Jesus Chuy Rosales looks at a recent gathering on campus that discussed the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
While we are bombarded by the mainstream news regarding the conflict between Israel and Palestine, only portraying two perspectives, here at UC Santa Cruz, OTI, the Olive Tree Initiative, is trying to create dialogue to break the two-sided discourse on the issue. Sami Abdelhaling, a junior politics major and founder of the OTI chapter here in Santa Cruz, hosted an event on Monday at the Kresge Town Hall. A panel of 5 UCSC students, a UC Irvine political science graduate Kevin Pham, and Daniel Valenfeling, PhD director of the certificate program in conflict analysis and resolution at UCI, met Monday to redefine Israel and Palestine discourse on campus.
The main accomplishment, or what I think the group here tried to accomplish, is introduce the Olive Tree Initiative to people who don't know much about it, and to share from their perspective why they're involved, to make people more interested in it, and hopefully they come to the meetings and find out more if that's what they want. And I think what I try to accomplish is telling people, that that's a really important initiative to be involved with, but also that it's not just about people who are pro-Israel or pro-Palestinian, that everybody has a place in it and should be involved.
One of the panelists learned from Sami about the initiative's mission. He found it to be a space where he could share his story and gain a new perspective.
I grew up believing that there was always this Palestinian side and the Jewish perspective. There was a Palestinian side and an Israeli side. And coming into UC Santa Cruz, I started to educate myself, because I understood that, having close ties is definitely important and has definitely shaped who I am today. But it's also important to go beyond that and to break free of that and to explore for yourself. So Sami invited me and told me about OTI when it was first started, and I said, sure, I'll come check it out. At first I was kind of weary. I was like, I don't know, I think I'm good. One of the most important things I've learned from OTI is you can't label this issue as two-sided. It's a lot more complex than that. There isn't just one single Palestinian belief. There isn't one single Israeli belief. There's a wide spectrum of beliefs, and from OTI, what I've really gathered is I try to no longer label this issue as this side and that side, because it really polarizes not just our campus, but the entire issue as a whole.
The Olive Tree Initiative was founded in March 2007 at UCI. OTI began with a diverse group of students from Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Druze, and non-religious backgrounds with varying perspectives on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. They sought to create a forum where students could discuss and learn about different perspectives on the Israel-Palestinian conflict. The organization takes its name from the olive tree, a plant native to the Middle East and a symbol of the conflict's deep roots. OTI attempts to facilitate a discussion in order to minimize the tension. The organization looks to take the necessary steps to do so.
We hope to attract the student body to come think of a new way to talk about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, not necessarily of one side or the other, but more open and constructive dialogue. And we were hoping that we'd get a larger student body in here and more interested in the Olive Tree Initiative, so that way we could get more members to start coming to our meetings and be more active within the group, and hopefully have a reflection of the organization being more active on campus and bringing to light this issue in a more constructive way than a negative connotation, than it usually has in a negative connotation. So we wanted to get more students involved in more the peace building of the whole conflict rather than the beliefs of this or that. We wanted students to come with an open mind about the conflict and hope and push for a better future through education.
However, not everybody believes OTI has the right goals in mind. In the letter published by the San Francisco Chronicle, Tammy Rossman, a lecturer in Hebrew from the UCC language program, filed a complaint against the university, urging the university to drop its sponsorship of events focused on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, claiming that Jewish students have been intimidated and emotionally harassed by university-sponsored events. On the other hand, Nadia Tanous, a second-year anthropology major, does not share Tammy's views of the student Jewish community.
I haven't felt any sort of violence or any sort of hate towards Jewish students on campus. I live in Stevenson, which has the reputation for being a college that has a large Jewish student body. And inside Stevenson, I never saw any sort of hate or any sort of insurgence against Jewish students. When we say it's an anti-Semitic issue that we're looking at and that there is being investigated, I think we need to use that cautiously, because anti-Semitic, Semites are also Arabs. We all come from Shem, right? That's the story.
Even though tensions still exist on campus, there are still initiatives and organizations like OTI trying to minimize it. Reporting for Banana Slug News, this is Jesus Chuy Rosales.
Thank you, Jesus. And now it's time for some current events. The Asian American Pacific Islander Resource Center will host the final luncheon of their 3-part student-faculty luncheon series tomorrow afternoon. The event will feature a discussion with film professor L.S. Kim. The luncheon will begin at noon at the Oaks Provost House.
The Academic Senate will hold a meeting tomorrow at the Stevenson Event Center from 2:30 to 5 p.m.
The annual Porterpalooza Festival returns this Saturday to the Porter College Quad. Porterpalooza will run from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. It will feature art, food, and music from all across UCSC. Admission is free.
Campus theater troupe Slugs and Fishnets presents their annual rendition of the Rocky Horror Picture Show this Saturday. The show will begin at 10 p.m. at the Stevenson Event Center. Tickets are $6 for Stevenson residents and $7 for general admission.
The art department will showcase its annual student print and photo sale Friday, June 2nd to Saturday, June 3rd at the Elena Baskin Visual Arts Center. Works of art will be sold from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on both days. The death of al-Qaeda leader Osama Bin Laden may have been over 2 weeks ago, but students still have a lot to say on the matter. Maggie McFerrin, Paul Vasquez, and I took the streets to listen.
On May 2, 2011, United States military action ended a decade-long manhunt with the death of Osama Bin Laden, founder and leader of al-Qaeda. Osama Bin Laden has been a prominent figure in U.S. foreign policy for the past 20 years. The ripples of this event can be felt throughout the nation. Osama bin Laden was the leader of the international terrorist organization al-Qaeda, founded in the late 80s. Osama bin Laden helped orchestrate one of al-Qaeda's largest attacks, the hijackings of September 11, 2001, which killed thousands of American civilians. The United States' war on terror in the Middle East has been in part focused on the removal of al-Qaeda from power, as well as finding their leader, bin Laden. On the 2nd of this month, on order of President Obama, United States Navy SEALs and CIA operatives killed Osama bin Laden in a compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. UC Santa Cruz students' responses to bin Laden's death varied from celebratory to skeptical.
I didn't celebrate at all. I think that it's like I guess it's a big deal, but at the same time, I don't think that it's something to celebrate at all.
I think there's other things that
there are more important things.
There's more things to celebrate, and yes, he was one figurehead, but our struggle in the Middle East isn't over, so I think it's a premature celebration.
Yeah.
I didn't believe it at first. I was just sort of like, whoa, that's really? Whoa.
I joined in. I was celebrating with friends in my dorm. I was perfectly okay with it. I mean, I'm not for killing people, but, he was kind of a bad guy, and he was a mastermind behind the deaths of several people, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I agree, and it kind of reunited the country again. It was basically the first time the country was brought together since Obama was elected. So
we actually kind of had a big debate about that, and we kind of came to the conclusion that as a moralist, it's kind of wrong to celebrate the death of someone, but as kind of a U.S. citizen and nationalist, it was worth being okay with.
It was worth being, it was kind of glad about, just not the fact that you killed him, but the fact that it's no longer a threat.
Yeah.
UC Santa Cruz students understand how this event has shaped America and how Bin Laden in turn has shaped our generation.
I think that it put a really bad view on the Muslim community in our generation, a lot, because that was the whole reason that 9/11 happened.
The Middle East has been really vilified, so
yeah.
And everything. Whenever anybody says oh, it's so hard to fly anymore because of the Arabs or the Muslims, and that's just, I think, a really toxic environment for especially those communities that are living in the United States.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people. I mean, we were just kids when 9/11 happened, and so it's kind of one of those things where it's Osama bin Laden is kind of a figurehead of terrorism in our minds. So it's a little weird the fact that now he's gone. And whoever Al Qaeda ends up replacing with him will never kind of inspire that same feeling in our generation.
I've noticed in my peers around this generally some kind of dislike towards the Middle East because of it, which is unwarranted, but it is what it is, and that's how I feel it's affected us.
Mike Urban, professor of politics at UC Santa Cruz, gives a more academic viewpoint.
Well, I think there are two Bin Ladens, really. There's the actual person, Bin Laden, who was born into a wealthy royal family in Saudi Arabia, went on a mission early in life to Afghanistan to fight foreigners, and was assisted at this time by the United States of America. The same Bin Laden remains in Afghanistan to fight thereafter foreigners in many places, especially the United States, and his explicit reason is because the United States is maintaining troops in Saudi Arabia, which is an infidel occupation of the Holy Land, and it's his duty as a devout Muslim to expel them. Then there's another Bin Laden, not altogether different, but distinguishable from the first, who is the boogeyman of international media, particularly the United States. This Bin Laden is the repository of all our hatreds and fears. And so killing him leads to illusions that we've killed the snake and evil is no more. We helped to invent the first Bin Laden, and we invented entirely the second one.
Why do you think it took the United States 10 years to find him?
Because we weren't looking very hard from the beginning. We knew where he was in Tora Bora, and instead of going in there ourselves and getting him, we paid a bunch of warlords to do it, who took money from the other side too, apparently, and didn't do it. Thereafter, I think that the evidence indicates that he was sponsored by Afghani secret services. So that's another reason. But I think the initial reason is we blew it.
How do you think, the president said justice was done. Do you believe it was done? Because he didn't get a trial, they just killed him. What's kind of your take on that?
I think that's using the word justice very loosely. Something that our government seems to have been doing more and more over the course of my lifetime, particularly in the last 10 or 12 years. The celebration saddened me very much because it's displacing one function onto another. This is not we win the Super Bowl or we win the Olympics. This is we murdered the physical embodiment of that symbolic monster that we have talked about for the last 10 years.
The debate rages on whether or not justice has been served.
The instinctive side of me says it was justice, but he probably should have gotten a fair trial, but that's not what happened, and this is how it worked out.
It was honestly the least amount of justice that could have been done.
Yeah.
It was.
Did he even have a trial?
No, he got shot in the eye
revenge.
and died.
I mean, so what if you just kill a dude? That doesn't change anything. So what if you got one guy who did something really, really bad? Like, justice was served. My butt. Like, I'm sorry, but I think he's taking way too much credit for killing one guy, and it took 10, 11 years to do that. No.
Generation.
I imagine people who actually knew anyone that was in the towers probably felt a lot happier at his death.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
It's like watching a convict going on death row.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although America's most wanted man for the past 10 years is gone, the solution of peace in the Middle East is far from a reality. For BSN, I'm Maggie McFerrin.
While there may not yet be peace in the Middle East, hopefully there'll be a little more peace of mind for UCSC students. Now we turn our attention to women's rights and the recent slut walk that's helping to promote them. Residents of Santa Cruz teamed up with students to participate in the local slut walk last Saturday. The slut walk is a march by concerned residents to protest comments made by a Toronto police officer on January 24th. Officer Michael Sanguinetti commented during a talk at a law school that women should, quote, avoid dressing like sluts in order not to be victimized, end quote. The walkers followed the lead of Toronto residents who staged a similar march on April 3rd, as well as dozens of others across the country. But what exactly was the point of the slut walk for our own slugs?
Out of all the negative slut shaming we have been exposed to, redefining the word slut is not just about redefining our cultural dress code. It is not just about being able to wear less cloth and more spandex. It is not just about reclaiming everything that has before this point been called slutty. This isn't about changing clothes. This is about changing minds. This is about making people recognize that the way you perform your identity, whether that be clothes, gender, or sexuality, is not grounds for punishment or judgment.
The walk began at about noon. Protesters started at San Lorenzo Park, catching the attention of cars and passersby. They wore heavy clothes to protect themselves from the rain. Unfortunately, this masked the revealing attire, which was one of the main points of the slut walk.
The identity that we express is ours. We do not do it for anyone. We do not do it for men, we do not do it for attention, and we certainly do not do it for sexual predators. This is about breaking down certain ways of viewing sexuality that are oppressive and silencing. There is no anonymous creator of social morals. There is no one in the sky telling us who to f***, how to f*** them, and why. Instead, these social morals are created and perpetuated by those in power. Law enforcement, government officials, the Toronto Police Force, news reporters, media officials, advertisement agencies. Those who have been designed to protect us have in turn been designing our cages. They are still riding in the wake of myths that told.
The members of the Santa Cruz March also hope to raise awareness about the lack of rape prevention on campus in light of the recent cuts to the rape prevention programs. More slut walks are scheduled later in the year in different parts of the country.
Our next piece takes a look at the lives of a diverse group of students here at UCSC. Veterans from the armed forces have been increasing every year here at the university due to recent service abroad and the new post-9/11 GI Bill. Today, the student veterans have made a tightly knit community here at the university, but they are still relatively unknown. Pierce Crosby has more with the story.
The diversity of community offered here at UC Santa Cruz is unique in its inclusive nature. Students, no matter their interest or background, are given opportunities to relate to those who share their values. For some more than others, this community has become essential in allowing students an opportunity to build lasting relationships and help their fellow peers. One of these such communities that has just been recently built is the community of UCSC veterans. The Veterans Education Team Support Program was created in 2008 in response to the dramatic increase in student veterans here at UCSC. Motivated individuals like Daniel Wilson and Danny Melinda were here to help in the fight.
So they put this focus group together, and they decided that they wanted to have some type of a resource program, resource program for veterans. You know, the thing is, a traditional student goes to high school for 4 years, has parents, generally, if they're going to go to if they're the type of student who's going to go to the UC, they have parents who are going to push them. They're going to help them. They're going to, along the process, right? You're applying, you got to take a bunch of tests. It's not easy, right? You were Frosh, I would imagine, right? You got to take all those crazy tests, right? And it must be nice, you know. But when you're in the military and you're stationed in Afghanistan, you know, and you're getting out in 2 weeks, and all you know is, I'm going back to America, and I can either get a job or if I can get into school, maybe I can get some educational benefits. You know, that's all you know. And
Although the creation of this vital program has indeed helped a group in need of a solid community, the general awareness of students about peer veterans is still somewhat low. And although we have more than 300 members of the military-related community, they seem somewhat distant and unrepresented. How could this be, then, at such a politically motivated university? The simple answer is experience. The differences in experiences that veterans have had compared to the incoming freshman student are massive, and this separates them.
There's definitely, like, I've taken some classes here where they get into politics a little bit, and at 18 years old, coming right out of high school, you know, you've never lived on your own. Like, most of them, mom and dad are still paying for them to go to college. Like, they don't know what it's like. They really don't have their own opinions. Like, what they have is opinions that other people have told them. And they just don't have the same life experience, the maturity level that, you know, I guess that I've gotten used to, you know, yeah. It's just different.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest thing I've noticed that is that students come straight out of high school into college and then feel like they know a lot about the real world and reality when they don't. It's a big misunderstanding, I think, and it's kind of pushed by some of the faculty. Not anything against them, but that, you know, we can all hold hands and sing Kumbaya kind of thing, and it's just not how the world works. So I think that's a pretty big, you know, it's nothing wrong there. I mean, everyone wants to help, and it's a very admirable thing to do, but being blind and think that it's going to fix it, going out and handing out candy bars to people is going to fix the war, it's just not going to work that way.
So you feel that serving has given you kind of like a more well-rounded experience, so that like when you actually come to school,
most definitely. Like the biggest part's like you are so grateful. Like when you come home from the desert, you're like, oh my god, a cold soda. Like, you know, little things make that big much of a difference. So like I don't want to say people. I don't want to say that they're not grateful, but I just don't think they realize how
for granted.
Yeah, like how good they have it, you know, and they think, oh, you know, the world's really bad over here and there, and we have it so bad here. You know, they raised our tuition. I mean, really, dude, you're not getting shot at when you're going to class, so you're pretty good.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, you come in with 4 more years of experience. I don't know, it's hard. I mean, when I was 18 either, you know, but I guess you learn as much as you can. It's a little different, I think, for these kids. Probably never had a job, never had to pay bills. Come here, they live in their, you know, perfect little world of theory that doesn't really apply to the real world.
So, how's your experience so far? I mean, back from service.
It takes a little bit to get used to civilians. Military's real structured. Everyone knows their job, knows what to do. There's not a lot of like haphazard activities going on. Go to school and people don't really know what they're doing or going. It's kind of just you know, aimlessly walking around, it seems like, and people are real interested in things that don't really seem that important to the, like, in the world perspective.
It's different, you know. It's like it's mainly the discipline, and like when you're serving in the military, like mission accomplishment is like the #1 priority. And you get it done. People know their place and what they have to do to get it done. And whereas you get here and it's like a lot more, and I don't want to say necessarily lackadaisical, but it's just like not as urgent.
And you see that things are pretty good in America, as much as people think it's screwed up. And the majority of the world's living in poverty. That's normal. This is not normal what we live in, you know.
I don't discuss my opinion with students other than my military affiliated member students, you know. That's who I bounce my ideas off. That's who I go to and say, what do you think about this? Or am I crazy for thinking that? I can't do that with these regular students here because they'd look at me like I'm crazy, right? And I'm closer to as liberal as they are than most of the student veterans are, you know. You really do feel like you're along for the ride sometimes when you're a 36-year-old student veteran going to a college like this, sitting in classrooms with all kids who are 18, 19, 20 years old. You know, I got some of these kids were not alive when I graduated from high school. All right, in my classes, there are kids who were not alive when I graduated from high school. You know, so it becomes you're like an outsider. in that classroom.
This informal isolation of student veterans is a problem that we have yet to address as a student body, and the experiences that they have faced is not reason enough to disassociate them from greater belonging. Faculty agree that student veterans bring a unique, beneficial perspective to the learning environment at the university. Hopefully students will come to realize this as well. Although these students are somewhat separated from the greater student body, it seems that they have been able to create a community amongst themselves that is helpful and beneficial to all. For Banana Slug News, I'm Pierce Crosby.
Well, hopefully the students will gain insight and a newfound respect for their fellow UCSC peers. Thanks, Pierce.
Let's turn to Ruby Tarzan at the Slug Sports Desk.
Welcome to Slug Center, your source for all things sports. I'm Ruby Tarzan. Tonight we will be taking a closer look at intramural sports and later live footage from the NCAA Tennis Championships. Intramural sports are played year-round by students of all athletic abilities. From soccer to dodgeball, students can choose to sign up with their friends or as individuals. Teams are separated into two programs, co-ed and open. Trained students, referees are provided by Here you can see students are playing baseball together, and we get along really well.
Go ahead. Because I like to get competitive.
Absolutely.
And stuff.
I don't do a lot of sports here, and intramurals are just way easier than, you know, a club team or a varsity team or anything like that. And I get to play with my house. It's a lot of fun.
To learn more about intramural sports, please visit ucscsportsclubs.com. Our men's tennis team, ranked 5th in the nation in Division III, flexed their muscles last weekend in the third round of the NCAA D3 Team Championships. They defeated number 8 ranked Pomona Spitzer 5-0. Here, Parker Larson shows off his fast footwork and strong hand return. And the team played third-ranked Claremont Mud Scripps on Saturday. Unfortunately, they lost by a hair, 5-3. And boom goes the dynamite. While our tennis team may be out of the individual tournament, players from both the men and women's tennis team have made it to the NCAA Division III Individual Championships in Claremont, California. The tournament will take place May 27th to the 29th. Banana Slug News would like to congratulate the students who will be representing our school. The singles qualifiers are Eric Koenig, Brian Pybus, and Ariana Mokhtari. The doubles qualifiers are Brian Pybus and Parker Larson. Now for some upcoming sports. The men's and women's water polo alumni teams will compete this Saturday at the 50-meter pool. The matches begin at 11 a.m. and are free to the public. That does it for sports. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Ruby. Finally, UCSC astronomers have done it again. One of the most recent discoveries made by our astrophysics department is the discovery of the farthest galaxy by Professor Garth Illingworth. Here's Brian Quiggle and Daniel Hoffman with more.
Tonight, Banana Slug News, we have a story that is simply out of this world.
Garth Illingworth, a UCSC professor and world-renowned astronomer, recently led a research team that discovered the oldest galaxy known to mankind. The gravity of this discovery has shaken the scientific community.
Jupiter. So I did astronomy, and then I went through, to university and did physics, and sort of got a physics degree, and that was in Australia. So then I went and got an astronomy PhD from the Australian National University, and then came across here to Arizona, to Tucson, to the National Observatory. So I've worked in Arizona and Baltimore at the Space Telescope Science Institute.
The galaxy Professor Illingworth discovered using Hubble Space Telescope images is located 13.5 billion light years away from Earth. It's thought to have formed 500 million years after the Big Bang.
We sat down with the professor in his office to discuss his research and recent discovery. He's a well-respected and valued member of the astronomy community and has been active as chair of several different scientific committees. He's also a UC researcher at the Lick Observatory.
We've been using the Hubble Space Telescope now for many years, searching for galaxies way far away, which means way back in time, because the light takes so long to reach us that as you go far away means you're looking back millions, in fact billions of years. And in this particular case, we've pushed it back 13.2 billion years. The universe itself is 13.7 billion years old. This is an incredibly big number. But what it means is that we're looking back through 96% of all time to when a galaxy started to form, and in fact it must be one of the first galaxies, not the first by any means, but a very early galaxy. This is the object, this faint fuzzy little blob here. So this is part of this beautiful big image, and now we're focusing down on a tiny little region in there. And so what we've done is that we have images in all different colors. And so in the optical we have blue images, we have green images, red images, and then we go into the near infrared, which is just a little longer wavelength. And so we have these many different colored images. And so we can search through these and we look for objects which don't appear in most of the images, interestingly enough, but do appear in particular ones. And we know with red objects at this early time that we would only expect to see them in the longest wavelength filters, in the very red filters, in the very red images. And so that's one of our selection, the first selection criteria. So of tens of thousands of images in this object, one of them stands out as a possible very early the very earliest galaxy. One of the things that surprised us about this was that we only found one. From looking at the little later times, we would have expected galaxies to be more common at these times. And we expected to be able to see 5, 10, really quite a few of these objects. And we tried really hard, and we found just the one.
Professor Illingworth anticipates finding even more distant, farther galaxies. He hopes to do this with NASA's new James Webb Telescope, which is currently in development.
And I'm currently chair of a committee that is looking at the operations of that telescope that goes out beyond the moon. It sits way out there. It gets incredibly cold. It's shielded from the sun by a tennis court size thin plastic shield. Incredibly sophisticated technology in this telescope. It cools down to just 50 degrees above absolute zero. It's incredibly colder than liquid nitrogen.
The James Webb Telescope is scheduled to launch by 2018. When operational, the telescope should find galaxies even older than Professor Illingworth discovered. Unfortunately, the project is running behind schedule and over budget. More funding will be required for the telescope to be completed. The professor is now working on a proposal for more time on the Hubble telescope. He hopes to find even older galaxies with Hubble data while searching deeper into the universe.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed our program tonight.
For Banana Slug News,
I'm Daniel Hoffman.
And I'm Brian Quickle.
Well, thank you for that, Brian and Daniel. Our astrophysics department never fails to shoot for the moon.
Before we sign off tonight, we apologize for not... Before we apologize to those of you who tuned in last week expecting to see our finale, we had some technical difficulties and we apologize for not airing last Thursday.
If you want to get involved with BSN or you have a story that you feel needs to be covered, email us at bananaslugnews@gmail.com to see what we can do for you. Also, be sure to like our page at facebook.com/bananaslugnews.
Well, it looks like that's all the time we have for tonight. For all of us here at BSN, I'm Monica Cordova.
And I'm Paul Vasquez. Good news and good night.